This is the Quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong, also known as the Little Red Book, Chapter 33, Study. And before we begin, I want to add that this is the final chapter of my edition of the text. There may well be more in later editions, but I digress. Anyway, we begin. In transforming a backward agricultural China into an advanced industrialized country, we are confronted with arduous tasks, and our experience is far from adequate, so we must be good at learning. Quotation from the opening address at the 8th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, September 15th, 1956. Conditions are changing all the time, and to adapt one's thinking to the new conditions, one must study. Even those who have a better grasp of Marxism and are comparatively firm in their proletarian stand have to go on studying. They must absorb what is new and study new problems. Quotation from a speech at the Chinese Communist Party's National Conference on Propaganda Work, March 12, 1957. First pocket edition, page 8. We can learn what we did not know. We are not only good at destroying the old world, we are also good at building the new. Quotation from a report to the second plenary session of the 7th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, March 5, 1949. Selected Works, Volume 5, page 374. Pardon me, I do believe that was actually Volume 4. Anyway, continuing. Now there are two different attitudes towards learning from others. One is the dogmatic attitude of transplanting everything, whether or not it is suited to our conditions. This is no good. The other attitude is to use our heads and learn those things which suit our conditions. That is to say, to absorb whatever experience is useful to us and discard the rest. That is the attitude we should adopt. Quotation from On the Correct Handling of Contradictions Among the People, February 27, 1957. First pocket edition, page 75. The theory of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin is universally applicable. We should regard it not as a dogma, but as a guide to action. Studying it is not merely a matter of learning terms and phrases, but of learning Marxist-Leninism as the science of revolution. It is not just a matter of understanding the general laws derived by Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin from their extensive study of real life and revolutionary experience, but of studying their standpoint and method in examining and solving problems. Quotation from The Role of the Chinese Communist Party in the National War, October 1938. Selected Works, Volume 2, pp. 208-09, which is to say pages 208 and 209. If we have a correct theory, but merely prate about it, pigeonhole it, and do not put it into practice, then that theory, however good it may be, is of no significance to us. Quotation from On Practice, July 1937. Selected Works, Volume 1, page 304. It is necessary to master Marxist theory and apply it. Master it for the sole purpose of applying it. If you can apply the Marxist-Leninist viewpoint in elucidating one or two practical problems, you should be commended and credited with some achievement. The more problems you elucidate, and the more comprehensively and profoundly you do so, the greater will be your achievement. Quotation from Rectify the Party's Style of Work, February 1st, 1942. Selected Works, Volume 3, page 38. How is Marxist-Leninist theory to be linked with the practice of the Chinese Revolution? To use a common expression, it is by shooting the arrow at the target. As the arrow is to the target, so is Marxist-Leninism to the Chinese Revolution. Some comrades, however, are shooting without the target, shooting at random, and such people are liable to harm the revolution. Ibid, page 42, which is to say this too comes from Rectifying the Party's Style of Work, circa February 1st of 1942. Those experienced in work must take up the study of theory and must read it seriously. Only then will they be able to systematize and synthesize their experiences and raise it to the level of theory. Only then will they not mistake their partial experience for universal truth and not commit empiricist errors. Ibid. Reading is learning, but applying is also learning, and the more important kind of learning at that. Our chief method is to learn warfare through warfare. A person who has no opportunity to go to school can also learn warfare. He can learn through fighting in war. A revolutionary war is a mass undertaking. It is often not a matter of first learning and then doing, but of doing and then learning. For doing is itself a form of learning. Quotation from The Problems of Strategy in China's Revolutionary War, December 1936, Selected Works, Volume 1, pp. 189-90, which is to say pages 189 and 190. There is a gap between the ordinary civilian and the soldier, but it is no great wall, and it can be quickly closed, and the way to close it is to take part in revolution, in war. By saying that it is not easy to learn and to apply, we mean that it is hard to learn thoroughly and to apply skillfully. By saying that civilians can very quickly become soldiers, we mean that it is not difficult to cross that threshold. To put the two statements together, we may cite the Chinese adage, "Nothing in the world is difficult for one who sets his mind to it." To cross that threshold is not difficult, and mastery too is possible, provided one sets one's mind to the task and is good at learning. Ibid, page 190. We must learn to do economic work from all who know how, no matter who they are. We must esteem them as teachers, learning from them respectfully and conscientiously. We must not pretend to know what we do not know. Quotation from On the People's Democratic Dictatorship, June 30th, 1949, Selected Works, Volume 4, page 423. Knowledge is a matter of science, and no dishonesty or conceit whatsoever is permissible. What is required is definitely the reverse, namely, honesty and modesty. Quotation from On Practice, July 1937, Selected Works, Volume 1, page 300. Complacency is the enemy of study. We cannot really learn anything until we rid ourselves of complacency. Our attitude towards ourselves should be to be insatiable in learning, and towards others to be tireless in teaching. Quotation from The Role of the Chinese Communist Party in the National War, October 1938, Selected Works, Volume 2, page 210. Some people have read a few Marxist books and think themselves quite learned, but what they have read has not penetrated, has not struck root in their minds, so that they do not know how to use it, and their class feelings remain as of old. Others are very conceited, and have learned some book phrases, think themselves terrific, and are very cocky, but whenever a storm blows up, they take a stand very different from that of the workers and the majority of the peasants. They waver, while the latter stand firm. They equivocate, while the latter are forthright. Quotation from a speech at the Chinese Communist Party's National Conference on Propaganda Work, March 12, 1957, First Pocket Edition, pp. 7-8, which is to say pages 7 and 8. And here we have the final quote of this edition. In order to have a real grasp of Marxism, one must learn it not only from books, but mainly through class struggle, through practical work and close contact with the masses of workers and peasants. When, in addition to reading some Marxist books, our intellectuals have gained some understanding through close contact with the masses of workers and peasants, and through their own practical work, we will all be speaking the same language, not only the common language of patriotism and the common language of the socialist system, but probably even the common language of the communist world outlook. If that happens, all of us will certainly work much better. Ibid, page 12, which is to say this too comes from his speech at the Chinese Communist Party's National Conference on Propaganda Work, March 12, 1957. This concludes the written quotes of this text. On the back page, we have some words stamped on here by the printers, and all of them appear to be in Chinese, save for the year, which is listed as being 1966. At least I presume that to be the year of printing. We also have the numbers 1050-507, and at the very base of the page, 06-R-1. Outside of that, I have no way of knowing what any of those particular Chinese characters mean. However, again, based on my inference, likely the location of printing, name of the printing house, etc., etc. Now, there is one additional back page enclosed here, which is blank and appears to be stuffed into the little plastic cover on the text here. And that is doubtless just to provide extra additional strength to it. And I have sort of peeked in the crack, and there does not appear to be any writing on that back page. So that concludes the entirety of this text. I will, of course, be enclosing a full review sometime in the following weeks. For now, I bid you adieu, and this being a little after midnight now, good night, one and all. Thank you for joining us, and sleep well.